Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest Robert Clancy, and he's here to share with us his new book, Soul Cyphers, Decoding a Life of Hope and Happiness. Now, Robert is a creative visionary, #1 best-selling author, spiritual teacher, and co-founder of Spiritual Design Studio. At the age of 19, Robert had a divine spiritual experience that altered his life in profound ways. He's a sought-after speaker, presenter, and guest, and Robert is also a regular contributor and weekly guest on Los Angeles' KABC Radio syndicated late-night health radio show. So let's welcome to the show, Robert Clancy.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
What a joy it is to have you here, Robert. I mean, we've been connected on social media for some time, and I've seen your book, and so it's so nice that we get to have this conversation.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to, especially, I never know what the questions are going to be, so that's what I always love, and the conversation and where it goes.
Well, let's start with the beginning. Why don't we start with what inspired you to write this book? And I know the answer, but I'd love for you to share it with our listeners.
Yeah, well, my first book, which was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Soul, and I kind of wasn't ready to tell the full story yet, if you know what I mean, of what happened to me, but it kind of set this book up. And I found that many people, they read the inspirational stories I had in the first book, and then they said, I saw how you transcended grief, or how you went through forgiveness. How do I do that? And I'm such a logical person. I'm actually a programmer too. So I combined both in this new book, and I added these decodes. So it's little things that you put into practice at the end of each chapter. And that's kind of the journey to the structure of this book. But the onus was actually to tell and share my truth, which I've been keeping a secret for about 30 years, of a divine experience that happened at age 19.
Well, and you share about that in the book, and you go into great detail, and it's just heartwarming to hear about that experience. It's heartbreaking at the same time, just what you went through.
Yeah. And I get emotional just thinking about that, and the new book is really chronicling the whole story of that. But there's a short story. It's actually the night that I told my father of what happened to me in 2012. And it was actually the day before Mother's Day. And my mother was on her deathbed and passed away on Mother's Day. And I decided I can't keep this a secret. And I decided to share it more with the world. And that's why I wanted to, and you referenced the detail in that story, because I wanted to capture what happened. And so I don't keep people on the edge of their seats. What happened to me was I was way off the rails at 19. I was a straight A student up to that point, and I just had so many things, really bad things happen in a very short amount of time. And it was information overload. It was just overloaded my soul. I had friends commit suicide. I had friends killed in car accidents. Then I was struggling from that, and I almost got kicked out of college, as I'm sure many students are today. But as a straight A student and being a perfectionist that I was, that didn't sit well either. And then the relationship with my girlfriend disintegrated, and that was basically the only thing really holding me together at that point. And I just started checking out. I didn't want to feel anything. And then I was mixing prescription drugs and alcohol, and just went way off the rails. And luckily someone saw that I was struggling, because I was very good at masking all of this too. Keeping my Pandora's box lid on that. And she pulled me aside. I worked in this restaurant. She gave me this pamphlet on how to meditate, and it was a prayerful meditation. And said, go home and do this. She made me put my hand out. She put it in my hand, and she looked me in the eyes, and I broke down because I was trying to say it didn't happen. I wasn't struggling, and she saw through it. And long story short, I was about 3 hours into the meditation. I challenged God before the meditation. I said, if I don't see something tonight, I'm done. And so have at it, and you need to heal me. And light appeared. I opened my eyes, and I actually shrugged my shoulders at first, because I thought it was coming from my window, and I thought this was a complete waste of time. and it manifested into an angel. And I know what I saw because it was there for more than an hour, and she touched me in the forehead, and that's where all the words that you were referencing on my Facebook page come from, and in my books. I just wake up with these amazing phrases every day. I call them my downloads.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're pretty impressive downloads. I mean, there's a few of them I have marked in the book that I felt really impacted me. So I can imagine how at that age you're getting this information, how it's impacting you then.
Yeah, it was sort of, I had a few spurts of it over the years, but it was actually December 1st, 2012, when I woke up. All I can describe is it was a little different that day. I had a clarity beyond clarity, and that's when the mother lode of all of those came in. And they've been coming in ever since then. And it's almost like I see God's math on everything. I can look at a fire extinguisher and the word pressure is on it. And the words will be, when you feel the weight of the world upon you, know that love will hold up anything as long as your faith does too. Or I'll see, I saw a sign. It was, peace of mind is a beautiful thing. And the words just rearranged in my mind. And the phrase was, peace of mind may be a beautiful thing, but peace of heart allows you to see the beauty in everything.
Mm.
And they just go right through my soul. I not only see, feel, and hear the words, but I understand all the information that's behind them and just how each word and how they're put together in that sentence create that meaning.
How that all comes together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and before we go too far down the path, I'd love for you to share with us, like, where did the title of the book come from?
Yeah, it was. I was talking about a little bit of my programming background, and ciphers are kind of in code. You would have something that's encoded that you can't understand, so it would be a cipher. Something that's encrypted, something you can't see or get access to. And our souls are like that to a degree. When we're in, we're not humans with souls. We're souls surrounded in our humanity, and the humanity is the part that we're decoding. And so I apply my Soul Cyphers Decoding a Life of Hope and Happiness, because you can actually reprogram yourself for that hope, for that happiness, and all of those things are possible. And you can get out of the darkest. And trust me, I've been on rock bottom. I know what that's like. There are two things there, besides the bottom and the darkness. When you look up, you'll see the light and the way out. And it's not only a metaphor, but it's the direction. And looking up and being positive and coming out of that. So that's where this book evolved from, that concept.
Do you feel that, I know your book is written just for everybody, that people who are going through that like dark night of the soul, or that place where they feel like they don't have any hope, that this book is really something that can help them?
Yes, you touched on the key word. And it's almost like each book has a theme that I've written. And this one is definitely the hope book. And it does provide that. And it's for people, if you're struggling in any way, if you've lost a loved one, a child, or your spouse or partner, or things like that, and going through those things, it will give you those pieces. And there's a lot of stories in this book that I've collected, even from other people have shared their stories with me. And I had to walk in their shoes, because I haven't battled cancer, but I do know somebody that has. And their stories in this book, and their story has not so much to do with the cancer as it does with how they were able to help other people.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's that whole journey. A lot of times when people are going through something, that shared experience that we have allows us a lot of grace.
Right. And that's another one of those keywords.
I read your book.
Yeah, you have. And, I look at the faith, love, hope are kind of, there are no synonyms for either of those words, any of them.
Mm-hmm.
They just are. And they really only exist when you believe in them. Faith is having that belief. Hope is believing in something that it's going to get better. And love is the belief in everything. And that's really where it comes from. It's just, I see a pyramid when I hear those three words. And then grace is the infinity symbol that sits within inside of that pyramid.
Well, that, and it makes sense though, because you look at that and that's really kind of what makes for a, an ordinary experience to be extraordinary here.
Yeah. And it's been that kind of journey. And I really, over the last 30 years, I only told a handful of people about my experience with the angel. And most of those people are already on the other side because I told them in pretty much the hour of their own demise or death. And they were, I had a friend at 27 who passed away from cancer. And he was one of the first people I told. I just wanted him to have peace. And same when I told my father the night my mother was going. They had been married for 64 years, and I couldn't imagine losing somebody you've loved that long. And he was at peace. And when I told him the story, he didn't say anything that night. He just said something the next day. And that's the only thing he ever said about it. He just told me to tell her brother, my Uncle Dan, about the angel. That's the only time he mentioned it. But he was at peace, and he stayed with us for many more years after that. And we got to enjoy his soul with us until he crossed over.
And made that transition.
Yeah.
Well, in your book, you talk about, how you've thought about the different gifts that the angel has given you. What was one of the things that you feel that she also took?
Yeah. I had thought about it, over the last 30 years. It's all the amazing things I was given, and really everyone has these gifts and are open to receiving them, but took my faith, as odd as that sounds, because I was shown. So faith is a belief in something that you have no physical proof of, and I actually had proof of what I saw and experienced and felt. So faith was taken, and a couple other things: fear, doubt, and worry, which are kind of all the same for me. But the angel gave me that, and took away any of those things from me that I should never worry again in my entire life. Just live, and everything will unfold when it needs to. So I've just kind of walked that journey, and I did my business and all of those things that in working and building a company and those parts, I just walked the path. But I always observed people along this journey and how they connect, and I see those connections, and just in a child's smile, or how two people are holding hands or something, I can almost feel what's going on there.
Yeah, that and it's interesting to have, when you look at faith, having that taken away and really kind of replaced with belief, because it makes it such a stronger connection and says a lot about the experience itself.
Yeah, because you really don't have any worries in that sense, and you know that you're held. That was the first thing that the first amazing thought I had out of that whole experience and what was going on. And I was smiling ear to ear. I had to go look at myself in the mirror after this, and I actually talked to myself, because I said, "You're the only person that's ever going to believe what just happened. And you're going to have to carry that now, and you're going to have to live with knowing." And it was like a double-edged sword, that my life as it was is no longer. It's completely changed. And I could imagine if everyone had that experience, how the world would be. I have to carry it, and I'm there, and I just like I said, I lived the last 30 years just observing people, and I put my hand on their shoulder and say, you might want to say a prayer. They actually they do go somewhere.
Hmm. Well, and I feel like your book can be really a testament to people who are going through dark, difficult times, and that it really tells them it's okay to reach out for help.
Yeah, in many different ways. And there's a story in there, The Reverse Climbs, which is an epiphany that I had when I was climbing into the Grand Canyon. And of course, I went on Bright Angel Trail, like who wouldn't? But that's also like taking Class 5 rapids. I didn't know. And I'm walking down into a desert, and I didn't have enough supplies on me. And I came across this sign, and it said, if you choose to pass this sign and you do not have 4 liters of water on your person, we will not be able to rescue you or recover your body for some time. And then somebody scrawled like, have a nice day with a smiley on there. And, it didn't hit me at first, but I did pass the sign, and I only had a half a bottle of water. And I kept going because I thought this is easy. And it wasn't until I passed a park ranger and he told me that they lose people on the trail. And for first, a couple seconds, I was thinking, how can you lose anybody on this trail? It just goes down and comes out. I mean, there's no way to really lose somebody. And it didn't hit me that he meant that they die. And that's when by the time I got home, because a reverse climb means you go down fast, but it takes you double to get back out. Mm-hmm. So it's like being on a staircase for 8 hours. Think of climbing a flight of stairs for a couple of minutes and then do that for 8 hours in the heat. So yeah, I was out of water. I was dehydrated. I made it to the top of the trailhead. It was hours and hours later. My legs were like jelly, and I get to the hotel, and the receptionist there said, "You been hiking?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Would you go into the Grand Canyon?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "What trail?" And I said, "Bright Angel Trail." And she said, "Oh, the nickname for that trail is Devil's Staircase or Staircase or something like that." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah, I know." And while I laid there, I thought, how many people didn't bring something on that trail and didn't ask for help? How many people saw those people and didn't offer help? And that's kind of what we need to do. When we see someone struggling, and I do martial arts, so typically when you're in pain, you retract. Your body will repel from that. And when you see somebody in pain, we tend to turn a blind eye because you just don't want to get in and feel that energy or be part of that. And that's exactly the opposite what a martial artist does. They go into the pain to alleviate it. And when we can do that with each other and say, hey, I see you going through this, know that I'm there. And sometimes it's just an ear that someone needs that's listening to them.
That's so important. And a lot of times that's the most important thing, is being able to be heard.
Yes. And felt and be recognized. And even when I see homeless people, we tend to not look like they are invisible. And I learned a lesson in that a while back too. And I just stopped and talked to this guy and said, "I see you." And that was all he needed to hear.
Yeah. I mean, that's extremely powerful. And, of course, these are people who, for one reason or another are down on their luck or traveling that way. It depends on their situation. But it's, they're people with emotions and feelings. And, how hard is it to be on the street corner begging? Right. I mean, it's probably one of the more difficult things I think anyone can do.
Right. And that's, it's in every city, it's everywhere. And there's a lot of circumstances that get somebody there. Mm-hmm. Part of it is seeing them. And the next part is extending a hand. And I was in Washington, D.C. with my son, and he went into this store. I don't know. We were just walking along. He was about 16, 17 years old. He goes in, takes his money, buys a whole thing of apples, and then says, "I'll be right back." And he went back, and I didn't even see the guy. He did. And he handed the guy a whole thing of apples.
Well, that's really sweet. And we need more people that have compassion in the world like that can see beyond, anyone's exterior, whether it's dirty or wherever they're at. Just see beyond the exterior and see about helping people.
Right. Yeah. That's very important.
So, so let's talk about, because when we look at people who are going through difficult times, on the other side of the spectrum is love. So what is your definition of love?
Well, that is my favorite word on the planet in the whole universe. And mm-hmm. It was actually one of the first quotes that I got. And I have an acronym for it. And it's leadership, opportunity, volunteerism, and enthusiasm. And I've been volunteering with this group of amazing people. It's the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership. And I've been there for 30 consecutive years. So it's all part of my whole journey. And there are amazing lights that go through that. And the quote that came out of that was, "When you fill your heart with love, life will mend itself. But when you fill your soul with that love, you'll be able to mend the hearts of others.
Mm,
And it
I
just
love that.
comes, and I remember distinctly when I received those words and when I wrote it down, because I have a journal. It was back in the mid 90s. And that's when one of the first quotes that I had came through, or the first words. And then there were like little slices of them over the years. But now it's just like an open book. Like I see it in everything. I can look at a flower or a child or a smile or anything, and it's just words will just flow out of it.
That what a remarkable place to be in, to be so connected. And I think it really serves as kind of like a lighthouse for other people that are looking to have that kind of connection.
Yeah, and there's this just to fill in the second half. So this is one of the more recent quotes on love that I have.
Hmm.
It's love is the peace-filled eye of every one of life's hurricanes.
Hmm. That's a good one. The
It's just
one.
like I can see it too. Like I can see that visual, and they're all stored like pictures in my mind, like a Rolodex. So I can just call them out of the air.
Well, the one that really kind of spoke to me in your book is it starts the chapter of no limits. The only limits love have are those that you impose upon it with your own heart. And how true is that?
Yeah, it's I have another part of that, and it's love has no walls, thus it cannot be conquered. Love has no boundaries, thus it is always open, and love has no limits, thus it has no end.
Mm,
And that's the thread that holds the very fabric of the universe together. And it's the very thread that holds the fabric of your own universe together. And when you can put both of those into the same perspective of that, everything is possible. There are no limits of anything. The only limits you have are your own imagination, and that should also be limitless, just like love. And when you can carry that, it's like, why not? Why not me? I questioned for 30 years, why me? Why was I picked by the angel? Why was I touched in the forehead? Why was I given this? And in 2012, as December 1st, I woke up with the first words from the mega download, which was, why ask why when you should ask why not?
well, there you go. Well, and the thing is too, I mean, you have, it's taken it's been a journey, but you have, openly talked about your experiences, whereas maybe some other people would feel like, gosh, I don't think I could really talk about this.
Hmm. Oh, I know. And I recently went on our local NBC affiliate called me. I was supposed to be going on air for volunteerism. And it was an interview that came in like on a Wednesday, and they said, can you be in the studio? So I'm there, and the news anchor's there, the whole thing. And I'm in the chair waiting, um, all of that. And about
Hmm.
2 minutes before we go on air, she looks around the camera and she said, I went to your Facebook page and I was reading your words. Where do those come from? And I said, do you really want to know? And she said, I do. So I pointed to heaven, and then I explained to her my divine experience in about 30 seconds. And her jaw dropped and she said, are you okay with talking about this? Oh my God, we have to talk about this. And so that was the first time I spoke to my surrounding community, which is about 7 counties in our whole, wherever the
Hmm.
affiliate broadcasts, and then online and everything else. So I got about 150 messages before I even got home from the studio from people all over, just saying what you just said just touched my soul or healed me or brought me back to faith or those things. So I know I'm on the right path of what I have to do. And it really comes down to living your truth. And I couldn't really be me because that is part of my truth. And it's just, it has to be told, and I'll accept and I trust the big picture, that God has placed for me. And I have that in my heart now. And I know that it's held, that this is part of my journey in this life.
For those that are trying to take little steps towards that type of belief, what advice would you give them?
It's to really stand up for what you believe in. And the person that I can really look to is my parents, my mother especially. She was very faithful. I avoided talking about religion. I avoided probably my own faith up until, the divine experience. And we go to church or we listen in a synagogue or we go to a temple or whatever you're doing. Do you really believe what is being taught and said? And I had to go into that journey after I was shown that, yeah, there are truths in the Bible or in the different religious doctrines out there because I experienced it. So I kind of chuckle when I watch Ancient Aliens because they're showing like, oh, maybe the Anunnaki. And I'm like, they have wings on them. I think that they were angels. Maybe they were in human form, but I don't know. I saw one that.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Robert Clancy in regards to his new book, Soul Cyphers, Decoding a Life of Hope and Happiness. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community, and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest Robert Clancy, and he's sharing with us his new book, Soul Cyphers, Decoding a Life of Hope and Happiness. Now, Robert, before we left for break, we were kind of talking about some of these different shows, kind of like Ancient Aliens, and how they always attribute everything to aliens. But perhaps some of those beings could be angels. I mean, we were talking about how they have wings. What are your thoughts on all of that?
I believe that for thousands and thousands of years, people have been guided by these beings, which are God's messengers, and through God's words coming in. And so I had to take that on. And my mother was very faithful. And I thought, what what a great way for me to honor her, stand up for the religion that she believed in with all of her heart. And to, why am I not speaking about it? And why aren't we? And it takes courage. Yeah. And it takes, I've just sat in awe of those that have faith. And it takes that kind of faith, which I didn't have. And I've just sat back and I thought, I'm not worthy of this, because those people, the people that have held the faith, I'm like, oh my God, like, you just believe because you believe. I had to be shown I'm not worthy.
Well, and it's interesting, there was a poll done recently that talks about now more than ever that most people, I think it's actually gone to a point where most people are saying that they don't have a religion, and that's not for them. So when we talk about, the Bible and your experience, I've always believed that there is a thread of truth throughout that. And I think that's something that people can really grasp on and understand, that it's like, hey, there is some truth to this, and you have to find it for yourself in many ways.
Right. And if you really think about it, if somebody goes back and they listen to every interview that I've probably done talking about my experience, it might change slightly depending on how I'm saying it or what I'm saying. But the bigger picture is always there. Whatever the message is in the experience and the truth that's within that piece. But like, you pass a story from one person to another, it's going to eventually change a little bit, but it can come back as the same truth that's in there. And sometimes it can be completely off, and that's if they don't pass it correctly. And that's the same way until we actually wrote everything down in our different religions. How many years was it handed, word of mouth or witnesses that try to recount things? I mean, people, when they see somebody today just walk by, they might not even remember what they were wearing. So, but the gist of what happened is still there. Yeah. So I take it from that standpoint. And then there's other things that are probably spot on, exact to the letter of what happened.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to be said with that. And I think it opens the door for discussion for people then to explore their spirituality, whatever that means for them, but at least to get involved and start looking at their spirituality as a personal journey.
Yeah. And it is. And your body is like your own temple, and it's your job to look in so that you're never without. And that's really the key to whatever that religion is. And I've run into so many young people who they're nothing. There was no religion, no belief in anything. They just think I'm living and that's it. And that could be, maybe that's their journey. I wish they had my experience, and I can only share what happened. And that's the best way that I can do this. And I'm given an opportunity and a platform, not only through my book, but other channels, to actually now go from one end of the spectrum of not telling really many people to telling the entire world.
That's exactly what you're doing.
It is.
And good for you. Hey, I'm cheering you on.
And I want to do it. And it's something that I had a great discussion with my son the other day. He's 19 years old. And I was having a difficult day, struggling with, do I do this? How is this going to affect my family and all of those things? And I said, I know that you understand what happened to me, and you believe that I believe what happened to me. Maybe you don't believe me, but maybe you do. But I won't do this if it's going to affect you, and it will if I do and go out and do this with the rest of the world and the platform that I'm going to be given to do this in, which is a movie. And I said, are you okay with that? And he said, I am, and we need to do this. And you need to do this.
That is some great. It must have felt so empowering to have your son say that.
Yeah, because I didn't know what he was going to say at that point, and I was at the, I'd just gotten the call, for the screenplay and the whole thing, and it's there on a silver platter if I want it and if I want to do it, but I wouldn't do it if it was going to affect him. And he said, I'm ready for this. So let's do this together. And that was the gist of his message. And I was like, okay. And he had a lot of wisdom at that moment too.
It seems that your family has a lot of wisdom at the age of 19, I'll tell you.
Yeah. And I'm looking at him because he is the same age that I was when this happened. So I know what I was like then and what I could process and what I couldn't. And I'm looking at almost like a mirror. I'm like, wow, he's the same age I was when I not only went off the rails, but then had the experience. So I think, I look back and I'm like, my wife and I did okay. He's got his journey too. And I didn't want to taint what he has to do by forcing anything. And that's really, each of us have our own journey to take.
Well, and so when we talk about journey, a lot of people tend to carry their emotional baggage with them from place to place to place to place. What are your thoughts on why people hold on to their emotional baggage and how can they release it?
Yeah, that's probably the number one question in the world. If we could all do that, we'd be much lighter, huh? It's a difficult thing because you have like a black box where you store it, and it's almost like you have shame, or it is transcended into that, and that it's going to make you lesser or viewed less by others, and its appearances and all of those things. And that's probably one of the biggest struggles is to do that. And in the journey that I have to take, it's more transparent than I've ever been. And there are, people even in my own family or outside of that or friends that aren't ready to do that journey. And I had a very close friend who came out of the closet after, we were childhood friends. There was 5 of us. And we didn't know growing up until it was later after college that he let us know. And I had lunch with him the other day and I said, you're probably the only other person on this planet that understands what I'm going through as far as the other person that's close to me on this planet that understands having a secret like that and then sharing it and what it means. And he said, when I came out, I lost 75% of my friends. 75% of people abandoned me. Wow. But those that stayed are the ones that have the most meaning in my life and the ones that always did. So, and you're one of them. And that's, a big, big thing. And that's probably one of the struggles to let go of that emotional baggage. And he's living his truth. And I applaud him for what he's done. And we had probably the best discussions recently. One of the group passed away almost 2 years ago. And, he was sort of the one that always pulled us all together. And now we're left without that. And we had some of the best conversations we've had in our entire friendship recently.
With that level of openness is probably just a place where love was, that there could really be authentic discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have these amazing lunches now, and it's all on the table because when my other friend was struggling with cancer, I had to call him and say, in the last year of his life, we need to take the gloves off now. We need to be real. And we're going to have some difficult discussions and some that aren't going to be easy for me or you, but we have to have those. And I told him that, I could see the pain written not only on his face, but the last time I saw him with his family, it was on his kids' faces as well as his wife. And I said, we all don't know how much time we have, but how you face this is going to be one of the biggest things that you do. And it's how you're going to be remembered and how your kids are going to remember you. So they got to see their dad and his fighting spirit and his love. So I get to the hospital, I get the call, had to drive like 5 hours through a snowstorm down in Philadelphia, trying to get there. And you get into a strange hospital, and you've probably been in this situation where you're getting in there, somebody's been admitted, you don't know where they are, what room or any of that. Now I'm in a strange city with, just trying to get parked and get in there. I come through the door and his son is standing there waiting for me. Oh. And I hear, "Hey, Uncle Bob, Dad's upstairs. I can't wait for you to see him." And I thought, he did it.
He's able. Yeah.
It was just amazing. And I walked in and his daughter was there. He was hours away from crossing over. He was almost unconscious, or couldn't speak. There was no movement. I held his hand and he was able to squeeze it while I talked to him quietly. And I told him, you can go now, because I actually met with his son and daughter and told them everything that he wasn't able to, because he lost his ability to speak a few days earlier and he hadn't had the discussion yet. But he had told me. So I told them, and that was an amazing, amazing moment of our friendship.
Yeah, it's tough when we're in these positions where we have loved ones that are there, but to see that transformation and everything come together, I mean, what a beautiful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and I did get I asked them, I said, if you understand what I'm saying, just squeeze my hand, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
So I know he was still in there.
Get that confirmation that he's hearing what you're saying and appreciative of what you're doing.
Right.
Well, I mean, and it's, we look at these journeys and it's tough. I mean, I had a friend recently that has passed, and kind of the same type of thing. And some of the realizations that she had on her last few days was just very interesting. And you could see the soul as it's going through its progress.
Yeah.
One of the things that seems to happen quite often, for those of us who aren't making that journey quite yet, self-worth comes into play so much.
Mm-hmm.
We hear this thing, and you kind of touched on a little bit about guilt. We get a lot of, you're not worthy, people feeling guilty for mistakes that they've made in the past. How does this all come into play with being able not only to walk our journey that we are, but walk through, feelings of doubt and unworthiness to the place where we're feeling like, I'm somebody that has hope?
Well, I've have these amazing words that were all like born from the stardust. And what could be more beautiful than that, in that light that you have within you? Because we're born from the stars. And there are many things that come from the stars. One of them is gold. And when you look at that, and everyone has a right to shine, and your self-worth is one of the biggest struggles. And I can't say I'm perfect in that regard, because I also, question myself and different things that happen. We all do. That's part of the journey. But it's dreaming big, and a miracle happens when you act upon that dream. The dream is not the miracle. It's when you take a step forward in it. And it's almost like when you set your GPS in your car, you pick this beautiful destination, but your car doesn't go anywhere unless you start driving it. And we've probably all been stuck on the side of the road somewhere. And I ask people, when they're there, I said, have you ever been stuck on the side of the road? They're like, yeah. Go, why aren't you there now? I said, because I either started walking with a gas can, I put, something out to get help. And that's really the journey, is understanding that you can't be stuck on the side of the road as long as you're moving forward in some way. And there's part of that is just setting the GPS, driving the car, and you get off track, but the GPS will always guide you back. It might take a little longer, but you'll get there. And that's kind of how life is. And the self-worth journey is really part of that. And I've actually been keynote for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And I was at a few events, hundreds, thousands of people out, that I'm speaking with. I didn't realize that some of the people in the audience, because I thought it was all of the people who help the people who are struggling. Mm-hmm. It was actually people who were struggling themselves. And this one woman came up and she hugged me so hard that it took me a couple minutes to get her back so I could see her face. And she's got tears flowing down her cheeks. And she said, what you just said just healed me.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was her inner self-worth. And I saw it just go, just like that. So I was witness to something amazing like that. And the words that I write are just meant to be shared. So I just started posting them one day and on December 1st, 2012, and just never looked back. And the page, of course, that day, you'd love this, is there were 111 fans on the page, which is an angel number. And it was all my friends and family because I started the page like a month or two earlier and I didn't really do much with it. And then December 1st came along and it started growing by about 1,000 a week. And now it's almost up to 750,000 people are on there.
It says that a lot of people are really resonating with not only your work, but how it's impacting their lives.
Yeah, they're just meant to be shared. This is the legacy, what I have to leave behind. And that's part of the whole thing. And being able to tell my story is the second part of the chapter. So I get these quotes, and when I see a book, it's almost like every chapter in life should begin and end with love. It's up to you to write the beautiful prose in between those two pages.
I mean, isn't that the truth? I just love that. Well,
Yeah.
and, in reading your book, I found that even when, because everyone has grief, worry, doubt, maybe feelings of, maybe they're not feeling worthy, just kind of, we all have that kind of stuff. And we talked about the emotional baggage, but just some of the stuff that's still there. And what I noticed is even some of the grief that I didn't even realize I was still carrying when I read your book, that made its own transition. And you can feel it. It was kind of like a lightning, being able to kind of lighten the load.
Yeah.
So it was a very special, and you talk about miracles and different things in your book. I felt like it was a special gift to be able to have that experience. Do you feel like you get a lot of people reaching out to you saying the same type of thing?
Yeah, I've had people where, I don't know, I just sensed something, and this woman came up to me and she was smiling and she said, all right, so I heard you have these amazing words, and then people get emotional when you say them and they start crying, but I'm really happy and it's not going to work on me, but I just want to let you know.
Mm-hmm.
But can you tell me something? And I just looked at her and I said, do you really want the words? And she said, yeah. And as I started speaking them, tears flowed down her cheeks. And it was about grief. I said, letting go of grief is not letting go of your loved one. It's creating more room in the heart for the love that you have for them. And if you have great grief, then you must have a very big heart, and it needs to be filled with that love so you can share it with others. And what I see behind those words is that grief is a direct translation of the incredible amount of love that you have for whoever you're grieving. And when you can let that grief transcend back into that love, it's even a more powerful version of it.
Okay, well, now you're going to get me start crying here too.
That does happen. You're not alone. But,
I didn't bring my tissues. I wasn't prepared for this.
I was actually in the radio station with this one woman, and she said, can you tell some of your stories? And I said, well, some people get emotional if I say the words. And she said, no, I'm a professional. So I said the story. I look over at her. She's got her headphones on, and there's tears streaming down her cheeks. She's waving her hand like to cool herself off. And I'm looking at the guy in the booth, and he's telling me, just keep talking because she's out of it now.
Oh my goodness. Well, and it does have that impact because you can feel it go right to your soul. And and I'm sure you get that with everybody that is listening and everyone that connects with you.
I feel both sides. And when I write the words, it's whoever it needs to go to. So if it's one person or 1 million people, I've done my job. Mm-hmm. And I've received messages from people around the world now that say everything from please pray for me, I'm going through this, can you help me, to I was struggling today and I was planning on committing suicide. And I read what you wrote and I changed my mind. And I thought, what if I didn't post that day? What if I decided to just say I'll do it later?
Mm.
So I just post them as they come in. They're almost like little diamonds to me each time I get something. And I can read other inspirational words, and then it just brings more out of it. It's almost like I see blooms off of things, and I'll read quotes from the masters and people that have written some amazingly beautiful words, and it just creates more flowers off of them.
What's like one of the quotes that really touches you still to this day?
Well, it's the one on love that I spoke earlier, but my favorite one is the one about the love that transcends, all the walls and can't be conquered. But the biggest one is that hope will never leave your side unless you choose to let go of it. So why let go? And there's another longer piece to it that I just love the phrases that are from this. There's two parts to it. One is we never see the great picture God paints for us because we're always standing on the canvas. And of all the journeys of life, you'll encounter valleys of despair and mountains of hope. Just know that the heavens are above those valleys and the mountaintops touch them. To reach the summit, take one hope-filled step past your fear, doubt, and worry. That one is my journey.
Wow. That is another very touching one. I mean, I should have prepared better and had tissues here.
I don't have any either.
Okay, well, we'll all cry together then.
Yeah, I'm going to brand my own box. That's what some people said. When your movie comes out, you don't need to have any merchandising, just tissues that you're going to hand, because people will just be crying in ways of joy. It's what they're going to experience and see, the whole picture of that point of, and I can't wait to show people what the angel looked like and what the experience was. And that is the best way to do it, is through a movie, because it can reach everybody with a beautiful story. And that's so looking forward to doing this.
You have another one here I'm going to share with our listeners. It talks about paying it forward. I love that one. Too often people, they just like, it's not that big a deal, or
I can say it without you reading it.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, paying it forward is an expense we all can afford, and one humanity cannot afford to live without. Is that the one?
That's the one.
Yeah, I see those words and feel them, and it's just inspiring people to do something. Paying it forward can be as simple as sharing a smile. It doesn't have to be buying coffee for somebody behind you in line, although that's great. The smile is the greatest tool that you carry with you every day, and you just got to learn to use it, because it's a unique gift that we have.
And you can tell when someone's giving you an authentic smile. They're just, you can see them glowing, giving you a smile. And a lot of times it could be something that shifts somebody's day completely.
Yes. And it's all part of that. And I look at it that it's this tool that you carry, and how often do you not use it? So I just go out and I'm just smiling at other people, and it just like creates this viral light that just goes through. So, it's not the crazy smile, but you just go and smile at people when you're talking to them. And it's an amazing thing happens.
It's really being so fully present. Well, Robert, my goodness, we can talk about your book, Soul Cyphers, all day long. And I'm probably going to need a lot more tissues. I think when your movie comes out, every time someone buys a ticket, they should give them a little box of tissues or something like that.
You're going to need these. I'm just saying, while you go in there.
I'll be prepared. Our listeners are going to be prepared. Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about not just this book, but your books and your work that you're doing?
Yeah, the website is guidetothesoul.com, and that has links off to all my social media, my show with my amazing co-host who's been on your show, Lisa Winston. She's an amazing light, and she's my soul sister, so you'll see her smiley face on there. We also just all the different projects and things that are going on, and that's where I'll post updates.
Yeah, Lisa's a dear friend. Absolutely love her. I'm so glad that we've been able to connect now, too. Robert, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been a blessing, and thank you for all the things that you do in the world, too.
Well, Robert, it's been such an honor to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your new book, Soul Cyphers. Again, people can pick up their own copy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.